Hello and welcome to the very first Spec Fic Book Club, where we're starting off with this lovely thing over here, this anthology by the #LoveAusYA group, called Hometown Haunts, a Australian horror anthology. Hello, Bunny! Hello, Rookie Junior! Lovely to see you! Perfect timing indeed. Well, welcome to the book club. I'll start off by saying each month I would like to run a book club highlighting a speculative fiction book created by an Australian author, or in this case, 14 Australian authors, where we'll be highlighting them, talking about them, discussing speculative fiction, talking about all of that good stuff, and doing it in an anxiety-free, low-stress environment where the only person on camera is me. It's not like a Zoom call where you have to raise your hand and discuss. The chat will be going the entire time. If you've got a comment, you can comment it in the chat. But you don't have to show your face. You can show up, you can leave whenever you want. Low stress, good, inclusive. I hope you enjoy, and I hope this turns out to be a good thing. Yep, casually voguing, brilliant. As I may have also said in tweets and posts, I have made a cocktail themed on the book, which I'll go into later once we've discussed a bit more about the book. But I'm Phoebe, I use she, they pronouns. You can introduce yourself if you want. I will also introduce the authors. I've had to make a huge... Oh, that's the wrong button. You'll be drinking Moscato. Lovely. I love a good Moscato. I have put all of the authors' details that I could find. Not all of them have a social media presence, and that is completely respectable. But for those who do and who have their pronouns out there, I have linked that in this huge command, which you can do at any time. If you want to know who the authors are, just go !authors. And I've also got a content warning, because content warning books, if you want to find out what we'll be discussing, because I want to make sure that everyone is safe, everyone is looking after themselves, because we do go into topics of body horror, death, grief, self-harm, eating disorders, mental health conditions, as well as there is the names and likenesses of some Indigenous and First Nations people that will be mentioned at in some of the bits, and if that is upsetting to people who know that talking about Indigenous people who have passed away, please look after yourself. But yeah, let me start off with this. This book, I believe, came out last year? Yeah, published in 2021. I forgot what year it was. And it is a collection created by the #LoveAusYA people, who I've put their information down here in their Twitter and their Instagram. Time is weird, extremely. I can't believe it's 2023 already. But yeah, this was written mostly during lockdowns. The first novel of this is set at a illegal COVID party, which is really funny to reread. So if you have read it or not, don't worry. You can all find out. I will give a brief overview of each of the stories, what I liked about them. The illustration is gorgeous. And the best part, the little dinkus, which is a technical term for like the little asterisks that separate sections, it's a snake. Ooh. It's a little snake in the infinity symbol. Isn't that gorgeous? I love an organized dinkus. For the anthology I was part of, it was called the Prism Anthology, and they did like little prisms as the dinkus, and I thought that was absolutely adorable. Hey, Serica! Welcome in! The yes, it is an absolutely gorgeous book, and it has many, many lovely, lovely authors in it that I've actually got. I'll give you a brief intro into everyone. So the first, does this go in order? No, this is order of alphabetical names that I've written this down in. We've got Wei Chim, a Chinese-American-Australian author. She was the author of The Surprising Power of a Good Dumpling, which I've not read, but the name is incredible. We've got Sarah Epstein, a Melbourne-based author of Deepwater, is her most recent book. We've got Alison Evans, a Melbourne non-binary author. Books include Highway Bodies and Ida. which I've got Highway Buddies and I haven't finished. So Highway Buddies may be on our list of later books to travel through this year. We've got Lisa Fuller, a woolly woman from Queensland, authors of Ghostbird. I've probably mispronounced that. I did look up the pronunciation a couple of weeks ago, but I have just come back from holidays and I forgot to do that today, and I'm really, really sorry. Margot McGovern, a Adelaide-based author of Neverland. Poppy Nuosi, Adelaide-based author of Making Friends with Alice Dyson, Dream of the Death City, and editor of this anthology. She edited the entire thing. Her piece is kind of in the middle. It's very interesting. Michelle O'Connell is an Adelaide-based illustrator because, guess what? There are 2 graphic novels. 2 graphic short stories in here, which also have incredible art style. I will, let me get Michelle's up quickly. I'll show you more in detail when we get onto it, but it's incredible. I'm so glad that they decided to give the graphic novels the love that they deserve. And the other one is Emma Preston, who is a Adelaide-based artist, who her art is chilling. Absolutely gorgeous. We've also got Emma Osborne, a Melbourne non-binary fiction writer and poet. Mariana Sheck, a Chinese-Australian author of The Stolen Button. Sleep paralysis demons there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the story behind this one. I'll read all of the author notes for each section because they are absolutely incredible. And that one was about feelings of time loss and isolation during lockdown, which, if you're someone who is in Melbourne, or any part of Australia really, you have a good understanding of what a lockdown feels like. Specifically if you were in Victoria, though. Then we have Holden Shepherd, Western Australian author of The Brink, which came out, I believe, last year. We've got Jared Thomas, Nakunu person from the Southern Flinders Ranges, author of My Spare Heart. I also believe that Jared Thomas is the... let me get him up. Because he's an interesting one, because he... Yep, here he is. He's the curator of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders art and material culture at the Southern Australian Museum. And his piece was absolutely incredible. We also have Vicky Wakeford, a Adelaide author of After You Were Gone. And we have Felix Wilkins, an odd one because they're a Melbourne-based screenwriter and filmmaker. But they do have a short story in here, which is quite fun. But yes, this is the authors. I'll go over the blurb. One bite of an apple from a family shrine unearths hungry ghosts. A poison garden unfurls a polite boy's deepest, darkest desires. Interfering with an indigenous burial site unleashes ancestral rage to a metal soundtrack. An underground dance party during COVID threatens to turn lethal. And on the edge of a coastal rainforest, a grieving sister waits to witness a mysterious unraveling. Now, like I said before, there is a lot of themes of grief, of death, of mental health conditions. We've got body image, we've got body horror, we've got eating disorders and all of that kind of stuff. So again, I'm going to just put another content warning in chat just in case. And again, you can always check out what the content warning is with CW Books. But yeah, this is a #LoveAusYA anthology. The first time to focus entirely on horror. It unites a stellar cast of Australia's finest YA authors with talented new and emerging voices, including 2 graphic artists. These stories dig deep and go hard. While some are straight-up terrifying rollercoaster rides, others are psychologically rooted in our society's deepest fears and concerns. Oop, I'll have the book up so you can see it. Acceptance and fitting in, love and loss, desire and temptation, and the terror of the world threatened by catastrophic change and even collapse. From body horror to supernatural hauntings, to transformations and the everyday evil of humans to menacing outside forces, hometown haunts will have you glued to your chair until you leap out of it. Which, that is a good, really good blurb, in my opinion. And after reading the entire thing, I can definitely see that it covers an incomplete range of types of horror. And it kind of flows very beautifully. Yeah, we love a good blurb, and that one's definitely a good blurb. And the little bit at the top, which was the kind of the snippets of some of them, I think they give a good indicator of it. At first when I read it, it was kind of like, odd, weird. But after reading the story, the blurb makes a lot more sense now. Ooh. Sorry, I'm just enjoying my lovely... It is a vodka soda with a shot of Bilson's, which is a brewery and cordial company in Beechworth, regional Victoria. So a shot of Portello, what is it called? Cordial, some lime juice, and some blueberries. I went very schmancy, but also it's like the cheapest vodka I could find because we have to go for the teen aspect of this, because this book really encapsulates teen Victoria, teen Australia specifically. And binge culture, drinking, partying, getting the cheapest shit you can find, and trying to not munt in the bathroom. Which I believe one of the stories actually talks about that specifically. See, that is the blurb. So I'm going to give a brief overview of each of them before we start discussing the books, because I know that not everyone's read it. And I want to give my opinions as I give a brief overview. Yeah. Let me get up my notes, because I've been making these notes for a couple of weeks now. And they should be in order of the book. Okay, we're starting off with the first one in the book, Wei Chim's The Party. It is a strong start to the anthology. It is about two kids that are in lockdown while their parents are in lockdown in Singapore. So this is early COVID, and one of them gets entrapped into a house party that turns very, very odd. It becomes incredibly lethal. It incorporates Korean folklore, which I absolutely loved. I had to look up what the Gangsi was afterwards, which was super cool. I actually really enjoyed looking up more about folklore afterwards. And the Gangsi are like this sort of vampire-esque creature in Korean folklore, which was absolutely brilliant. And they incorporated that into a K-pop group that had gone missing. Oh, the hopping ones. The hopping ones. So you know more about the Gangsi. They seemed very interesting. It was very weird also reading about quarantine now that I read the first part, end of 2022. So I read it about November, December, the start. And then I finished it this month. And it was so weird rereading about lockdown stuff, I've got to say. Oh, and in my review, I've written, gay, loved it. It does feel a bit cringe. It's really odd. But it was really well done, because the entire thing was that it was not meant... he wasn't meant to go to this party. This party was very much forbidden. And he still went, and he fell into the temptation after trying to, save his brother. And it was very, very gay, which was great. I think 4 of these books is super duper gay, and loving that. Very, very, very fun. So that's the first one. Then we have Jared Thomas's Seek and Destroy, which was named... Actually, wait. Hold up. I'm going to actually read what Wei Chim's inspiration was for the party. Because I liked how at the very end of the book, they wrote it's got a little bio about the author, and then it's got their inspiration straight from the author's mouth. So I will let Wei Chim tell you about their inspiration. Hey, Conga Line Monkey, welcome to the Australian Spec Book Club. It's a little different to what I usually do, but I hope you enjoy. So Wei Chim has said, my inspiration for writing the story boils down to 2020 was absolute pits. How could I make it worse? During such a difficult time, music and a strong online community helped carry me through what was really a creative black hole. The party is written as a homage and gentle nod to the ARMY. ARMY being the Korean pop fans of... is it BTS that the fans call them the ARMY? I believe so. I could be wrong on that. I am not as well versed with Korean K-pop as I could be. Oh, BTSB, great, yeah. I hope fans and non-fans alike will appreciate the final reveal. So, it does have a K-pop fans dedication to it, and a K-pop dedication, which is great. Okay, now on to Jared Thomas's Seek and Destroy, which, after reading it, I found out that it is about the Metallica song, Seek and Destroy, which really resonates throughout the entire piece. Yeah, it's awesome song choice that was added to it. It added the eeriness and the urgency of the story. I've never really read something so truly Australian Aboriginal ghost story. There is an incredible camp scene, which I will read more about in the inspiration behind the piece, that it starts off with the main character, who is part of a construction company that has found Aboriginal remains in an area, in a sacred place where they were trying to dig it up and create, I believe, something to do with mining. And they've decided to keep it hush-hush and not tell people. They've decided to move the bones instead of telling people that there was bones there, because they didn't want to hold up the construction. And because of that, the main character is haunted by some ancestors, and haunted by a character named Georgie Barnes, who then goes and basically kills people. It's quite grotesque, actually. It was more grotesque than I was expecting. But it was an incredible, incredible story, and there's a moment where there is a campfire story that the main character goes back and remembers this Aboriginal kid telling him about Georgie Barnes as a kid. And telling them if you upset them, he'll not only go after you, but he'll go after the people you loved. And apparently, according to this inspiration section, that is based on a real story. Most of these stories, actually, the authors have admitted to taking something from their childhood, because they're all adults writing YA, young adult, writing for teen characters, and they've touched on elements of their own childhood and teenage years to tell the stories, which is awesome. What else have I said about this? The ending in this was absolutely intense, so if you haven't read it, please do. It was so grisly. I kept asking why Bradley, the main character, didn't just try and make things right the entire time. He could have told the authorities at any point, but he kept digging himself into this bigger hole, even as more and more people started dying around him. The vignette, it was set up in a vignette-like structure that really added to the pace and the mystery of the piece. I really quite enjoyed this one. And Jared Thomas says, Seek and Destroy was inspired by my love of the song Seek and Destroy by the band Metallica. And the story is basically a conglomeration of the type of stories my friends and I continue to tell each other when we're sitting around the fire. The idea for this story began with thinking about the tent scene. A friend and I shared a tent with a non-Aboriginal kid on a school camp in grade 5, and we told him these stories, like the one about Georgie Barnes. Bloody Bradley. Yeah, Bradley always fucking up. Consequently, I slept with one eye open that night. The country holds spirits, and we need to be careful not to disturb them. And Seek and Destroy was an absolute wonder. And it is so rare to see such Australian horror. That's what I loved about this anthology in general, is that the Australian outback seems to give a lot to horror, and it's really fun to read about it, more than just to feel scared when you're out there in the dark or by yourself with all of the noises. The next one we have is actually the graphic novel by Emma Preston. I'll start off by reading her inspiration instead of talking about the piece. Emma says, "The beginning of the year 2020's quarantines was a weird time for everyone. During this time, I was at university, still had classes to attend before the full lockdown. I remember walking around the city. It was quiet, and no one was around, but I still felt like I was being watched. It reminded me of my family when my family went camping out in the Flinders Ranges, which became the inspiration of this story. As the lockdown began, the city grew silent. Monsters who fear noises take solitude within the unpopulated areas of the Australian outback. But when people start to lock down and cities and residential areas become quiet, these curious monsters decide to do some investigating. When the lockdown ends, however, streets become bustling once more and the monsters take refuge in alleyways. Most leave, deciding that noise is too much to bear, but some stay, having adapted to their new existence." And I'll just flick through some of these pictures. Ooh. The art style was absolutely incredible. And just the story of these little monsters coming out. Like, kind of like birds that got, like, acclimatized to having people there. And you know how, like, when you drive past a bird and they, like, take forever to leave? That's what is kind of happening with these monsters in her story. Iki's It's So Creepy, indeed. Very much that. Then we have Heart-Shaped Stone by Vicky Wakefield. This was a story about a foster kid that is fostered by a family that looks after the neglected animals and people of the world. But majority the animals. He collects animals with, like, broken legs, or collects them with the runts of the litter and looks after them. Or so we believe. It's a story of bullying as well, so content warning on that. And there is something that implies sexual harassment, perhaps sexual assault, so please be mindful when reading this one. This is the only one that kind of has those connotations. But yes, turns out the niceties wasn't so nice. There has been sacrifices that have been made, and good and evil, and taking too much, to not get too much into it. It was not what I was expecting at all. I almost forgot it was horror at the start until Katie, one of the characters, mentioned the missing kids. I like how it was based on an urban myth, which I'll get into, from where the author grew up. The pacing was very slow, but the horror kind of creeped in slowly with it. And I will read Vicky Wakefield's inspiration. My love for horror began in my early teens, reading Jackson, Poe, Lovecraft, King, and Barker. Turning the pages by torchlight, I carry vivid images of creepy settings, the moors, the dank streets of London, the abandoned estates and sinister small towns. But none were as terrifying as my own suburban backyard. As kids, we would explore a series of deep interconnected gullies, crawling through filthy stormwater, pipes and drains, but we would avoid one place, a large granite slab stained with blood and scattered with bones, leading to the crevice of the hillside. According to legend, offer a sacrifice and you are granted a wish, but ask too much and you might wake up with a missing tooth, or a toe. I still live in the area. The crevice has grown wilder. The slab is still blackened, with blood and littered animal bones. Feral foxes? Kids like us carrying on a decades-old urban legend? Or an ancient entity trapped by a creeping suburbia? Heart-shaped stone was sparked by this memory of this unsettling place. When Arlo, the main character, trades parts of herself in exchange for belonging and vengeance, it piques to my affinity with monsters, often more so than humans. In truly affecting horror, I think we are both. I very much found this one to be it started off very, very YA contemporary. But then the, last 3 pages were absolute pure horror. Which was very interesting. To have so much contemporary before the horror. But it really, I think, made the horror more horrifying. The next one, Sarah Epstein's Stop, Revive, Survive, is complete horror. It is very much set in outback Australia, driving on a road trip, and stopping at a place that you didn't really want to stop at, and not being able to leave. So the structure of the story is exactly the title. Stop, revive, and then survive. They stopped, they revived, and they had to try and survive, but the ending leaves it a little ambiguous. It's the kind of horror I bought the book for, and it was absolutely written brilliantly. The pacing was perfect, the horror was so... sometimes horror can be written kind of cheesily, and you can kind of... not every sentence feels necessary, but in the story, I think Sarah Epstein really got every sentence to be crucial. And I think a lot of the authors in here actually did as well. The urgency was palpable as the stench of Stu's blood, who was the cousin who decided they should stop at this place and that they should take a little nap and that they should wait till it's darkfall before start driving. Really freaking hated Stu. And he got his comeuppance, so I'm incredibly happy about that, because, oh my god, as I was reading this, I could not fathom how much I hated Stu. The guy just didn't listen to reason at all. Had a great ending. The ambiguity left a lot of potential endings. And yet I think we all know what Eddie, the main character, will do as he repeats what his granddad taught him. The inspiration for that one. Sarah says, in 2018, I did a solo road trip up the Hume Highway to be with my dying dad in Sydney. It was a long and lonely drive, and my thoughts inevitably slid into dark places. I was worried about not making it in time. I was worried about fatigue. I was worried about pulling over, alone, to take breaks at isolated rest areas. Who and what might be lurking out there in the wild bushlands and the dense pine forests, along those desolate back roads and scrubby plains? In my distressed emotional state, the beautiful Australian landscape took on a sinister edge. And left me feeling vulnerable. Literally biggest fear driving in the bush. Absolutely. This story really encapsulated what driving alone in the bush feels like. This is what inspired my short story about 2 boys on a mercy dash and a rest stop that goes awry. Then we have Lisa Fuller's Don't Look. And that one, geez, she uses language very powerfully. And yet the entire time, you don't get to see what's going on. Which is kind of makes you feel like, hey, how does that work? But it works, trust me. This story is about 2 kids who are looking after their cousins while their parents are at one of the other parents' house. And they are all alone in the bush in sweltering hot weather. They leave their doors open because That's how hot it was. Windows, doors, everything open to let some breeze in. And while they're doing that... no, big no. As they are alone, two teenagers looking after, I think, a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, they feel movement in the house. Things aren't where they were. There was something dark there. This is a story mostly about grief, as the main character has lost her brother a few years before, I believe. But it's also about the horror of going into places and that have history, and very dark history, specifically around children. Lisa Fuller says, Don't Look is loosely based on a real event in my life. It was one of the most terrifying nights of my life, and I never stepped foot inside that house again. My cousin later admitted that she asked me to sleep over because she was scared to sleep there alone. She didn't warn me about the origins or anything else because she knew I would refuse. She was 100% right. I think most of us have experienced the scary feeling of not being alone and wanting to look but fighting the urge. Yet it's more terrifying when you can't see what's out there. I love and hate it when monsters stay in the shadows, never fully seen. The story includes my community's belief that you should never look in those situations, and that our loved ones are never truly gone. Though we grieve their loss, we know they are always with us, especially when we need them most. All you have to do is trust your gut and listen. So, the author and the main characters, all the characters in this novel, are Indigenous. And it really looked at that culture and all of the beliefs in the story, which was really interesting to read. They slowly and subtly revealed the tragic past that led to Raina leaving this place, and the fact that her brother had died. They built tension by hiding the entire perspective of our main character behind a sheet. She had the sheet up over her head during all of the entire scary parts, leaving so many questions unanswered. But you kind of didn't want to know what the answers were. A standout quote I have from it is, I don't let it go for long. My grief for my brother will never end if I let it all out. Another great quote is, it's bad to mention these things in the dark. It calls them to you. The oppressive Australian heat was such a unique and great horror device. In Australian horror, you really use the environment and the landscape as another literary device to convey the oppressive feel and the claustrophobia, or just all of the horror elements can be summed up usually in the atmosphere and the heat, which is incredible. That one was one of my top 3, I think. Though it was really hard to have a top 3. I'll go into top 3s later. But that one very much was a complete standout. The next one was the one written by the person who edited this lovely anthology, Poppy Nuosi. It's called Nature Boy, and this one was looking purely at grief. This one was really, really quite sad. It was about going back to a place that you had camped at as a kid, but going back there the next year without your brother. Your older brother who you absolutely adored. And trying to learn what grief is through the metaphor of unraveling. And seeing this giant whale being washed up on shore and watching the unraveling and comparing it to the human experience. Also, it was set during the bushfires, which was a unique but yet great setting for a horror, in my opinion. But Poppy Nuosi does not use the bushfire, the actual fire, the scariest part, in my opinion, of the bushfires, to convey this horror. She uses the people and what happens, because this place that she and her family used to go to all the time is overrun completely with people after these bushfires. And the fear and the panic and having all of the people crowded in one place was the fear generated by this bushfire, not the actual bushfires itself. The people are the overwhelming presence in the beginning of this novel. Another standout quote was, "I hear the whale screaming beneath my skin, lodging deep inside my heart like a seed." I think a quote that encapsulates horror writing in general, the 2020s, and this book here, as well as a reminder to keep enduring and surviving, is said by Uncle Kim. He says, "Bad stuff happened before in this world, and it will happen again. People just forget it, that's all." Because there's the theme of the end of the world in Poppy Nuos's Nature Boy. I'll read the inspiration for that one. "I wrote Nature Boy as a reaction to the overwhelming events of 2020, in the middle of which I also had 3 people connected to me pass away. I often use fiction as a release for my emotions and a way to process an experience without talking directly about it. Hence the idea of the unraveling in my story. While writing, I really didn't know what would happen when my protagonist witnessed an unraveling at the end. For a while I thought it would be a brutal thing of blood and guts, but then decided it would be like the stuffing coming out of a toy. It was only while listening to my favourite song by Nat King Cole called Nature Boy that I realised I wanted to end my story with hope. I imagine that the lyrics my main character sings at the ends are from that song. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. To me, this represents those small moments of fierce beauty, and that still exist despite the sad times, and which make life worth living." Okay, we're almost, I think that's halfway through. I'm going to have another drink of my lovely drink. I'm going to do another content warning and just another at the authors, just in case anyone new has shown up and has no idea what we're doing. There's the authors of this lovely anthology by #LoveOzYA. And here is a content warning for the stories we'll be discussing. Okay. Dan, that's a lot of authors. Yes, there's 14 stories in this anthology. Also, hello, Tom. Okay, next one we are doing is Margot McGovern, and I had to look up how to pronounce this. Urahaline, which is spelt like that, and means a creature that can live in different levels of salinity, otherwise known as a creature that can live in freshwater and saltwater. This is a story about anxiety and competitiveness of a great swimmer who was great in her local town, who won a scholarship to a high school that had this incredible swim team, but she freaks and feels the overwhelming sensation of the competitiveness and the anxiety of being on the scholarship, that she starts to see something, but she sees it from the very beginning, which is really odd. Because even before all of that fear, you feel the fear set in, she's already seeing this thing she calls a naiad. This ghostly presence of apparently a past student who couldn't quite cope with the competitive nature of the school. And it tries to drown her while she's swimming, which is quite dark and quite gritty. But this was another one of my favorites from this. It was really, really interesting. The anxiety and competitiveness was absolutely palpable. Her haunting is hard to distinguish from an actual ghost/creature. Water nymph. She's haunted by this water nymph. that feels like her fears manifesting as this creature that are chasing her. She is swallowed by these fears, made more clear when you learn that the author was wanting to allude to imposter syndrome. It's interesting that she calls the creature a naiad, the Greek mythological water nymph, as you've said, Demasan. Also welcome, hello. Which is interesting as a beautiful but extremely dangerous creature to sailors that is often known for taking them under the water with them. This was a theme of her hometown, according to the short story, but she felt safe at her hometown, and she didn't feel safe in this pool with all its fancy technologies and cameras that were watching her. Also, drowning could be an overwhelming sensation of study. Absolutely, because the main character falls behind in the study. She falls behind in the races when she first starts. It's very much this, all she can think of is the first swimming meet, the first competition, and it completely consumes her. I'll read the inspiration for this part. In your... How do I pronounce that again? I had to write it down. Eurohaline. A swimming champion becomes convinced there's something sinister out there to get her in the pool at her new elite school. It's a story about adapting to a hostile, high-performance environment and the intense pressure we place upon ourselves to succeed, particularly when we feel we don't fit in. To me, imposter syndrome, with which I am all too familiar, has always felt particularly maleficent for the way it seeks out the things that bring you the most joy and twists them into a source of anxiety and fear. I wanted to explore that in Eurohaline by drawing on my terror of submerged machinery, called submechanophobia, and things brushing against my leg in the water to manifest Tam's, the main character, anxiety and self-doubt as something monstrous. It was absolutely, one of my top 3 of this. Definitely. Then we are on to Mariana Scheck, Hunger. I've got to say, I'm going to start off with one of my favorite lines from that piece is, cosmic nepotism isn't cheating. An absolute highlight of the story, wraps it up pretty well. It is about the Taiwanese, nope, sorry, not Taiwanese. It was about Taoism. It was about the belief that your ancestors, by giving them offerings, you could increase luck and, increase your luck and look after yourselves by giving offerings and celebrating your ancestors, that you will have a good and lucky life. And in the story, the main character, she just accidentally summons her ancestors, specifically a great-grandmother, and an uncle, who were proficient gamblers, and kind of take the main character down with them, as they offer her the best grades in being better than her sister, but also the downfall of her sister's grades. They offer her the boyfriend of her best friend, by hurting the best friend. And they offer her the best place, the first chair, in a violin. But all of these offerings come with a price. And extremely creepy. Especially, like, stealing someone's boyfriend. But anyhows, they offer her these things and she falls for it. And she fully goes into this greed, which is really, really interesting to look at. It was called Hunger. And it actually, it shows the slow descent of jealousness and abusing power. It was really sad to see the main character, Christiana, go down this path. She had originally tried to save her friend, but then in the end decides to sacrifice Carrie to steal her boyfriend and get top marks. and yet it didn't feel overly far-fetched. The main character, the author, actually wrote this from a place of guilt, their own childhood guilt. I'll read the inspiration behind it. Mariana Sheck says, "As a child, I had an insatiable appetite. Growing up in Hong Kong, I was exposed to a weird and wonderful array of culinary delicacies. Fermented tofu, frog's legs, chicken giblets were my favourite things to eat. Nowadays, we have a thriving foodie culture. People share their experiences on how certain flavours and scents bring them back to memories of home. This is not my relationship with food. When I think about certain dishes, I am hit by the sense of umami, and then I remember my greed, my craving to eat more and never being sated. The premise of hunger is based on my childhood experience. In my family home, we had a shrine with statues of Buddha and a framed photo of my grandparents and great-grandparents. At the center of the altar was a Swarovski crystal bowl. It was implicitly understood that the fresh fruit from the weekly groceries goes into the fruit bowl as an offering before they can be consumed. One day, I couldn't wait and I stole a mango from my ancestors. The story of hunger is my imaginings of the retribution based on the ghost stories I grew up with." Absolutely incredible. And each of these stories had such a different reason for the writers to write them. And yet they all work seamlessly. That's the word I was trying to say. Within this anthology. Next we have another graphic novel. I'll read the inspiration before I show you the beautiful imagery. My inspiration, so this is Do We See It All Now by Michelle O'Connell. My story is inspired by growing up being neurodivergent and undiagnosed. A girl experiences life through her own lens. Her understanding of the world and how she is treated is filtered through it, perceiving negative and dangerous situations as neutral and harmless until later. While growing up, she sees glimpses of reality. Every life event cracks the lens. She sees the world through until she eventually sees it how it really is. Let me get to it. And this one has a more cutesy and yet creepy vibe to it. The cute is more cute, and the creepy is more creepy. And the cute gets distorted. Oh. Until the main character joins the creepy. Once again, it's really great to have graphic novels celebrated in an anthology, let alone in writing in general. It's usually seen as not reading and usually seen as not literary, but it really can be. And the two in here are both incredibly gorgeous and full of so much meaning that you can't really deny that they're literary merit. Okay, we are in the final stretch. We have Angel Eyes by Alison Evans, which is a werewolf story about two subcultures, I guess, or two creatures misunderstanding the other and fighting and thinking the other should be eradicated. It is about angels, biblically accurate angels, mind you, that are referred to as the wings in capitals for the first the and wings, and the eyes, capital T, capital E. As well as these wolves. And the first thing that is in it introduced to the story is that there are these posters around town that say, "The angels arrive to cleanse the sins of the wolves." And yet, as you find out, no real sins have been committed by either of the party until they interact with each other. Until the angels, the biblically accurate angels, which are all eyes, and the wolves, the werewolves, interact. This one has a ton of body horror in it because as part of, like, the fighting, the main wolf character and all of the other wolves in their pack, grow eyes on their legs and on their chest and on their body that weren't there before, that they can't see out of, which is really, really creepy and daunting. And, like, they go through, like, describing, like, poking the eyes and all of that. It's really kind of creepy, but it's really interesting. This story is jam-packed full of metaphors. The ending is brilliant, and all of the metaphors are brilliantly crafted. Alison Evans does this great thing of using inclusivity really subtly. Like, there's a character that they just drop that has a hearing aid, and the reason you find out about that is because they've asked people to call them only in emergencies because they can't hear very well, and it's hard for them in calls. They prefer to be able to read your lips. There is the casual mention of the outfits of Salim to infer different meanings. There is also this really warm, cozy, almost romanticized sharing of testosterone between two of the main characters, between Tom and Zero. They are so romantically entwined and they spend so much time with each other that they just share their tea, which is really cute and not what I was expecting at all. I've never heard of that before, but it really had this warm, cozy feeling. The entire pack had this really, like, found family, cozy feeling that, yeah, reminded me a lot of people I knew. I've lost my place. Yeah, also just love the biblically accurate angels. The creating these characters of mystic otherworldliness that turned out to be just a regular person, just a fellow teen, like the wolves were just fellow teens. Alison, their inspiration for this story, let me find it, is up here. When Poppy asked me to write something for this anthology, I started by thinking about the things that scare me most. This has been a good strategy for my writing, and my first 2 books focused on 2 of my biggest fears. Body horror is a particularly frightening branch of horror to me. The next step was figuring out what kind of question I wanted to explore. The way puberty is talked about by adults is often in quite monstrous terms, but it's not a monstrous thing at all. It's a stage of life that parallels. What parallels could I draw in a story that had characters going through both voluntary and involuntary physical changes? With that in mind, what makes a monster? And then that leads me lovely into the next story, which was by Felix Wilkins. It was called Best Years of Your Life, which really looked at the absolutely monstrous term, in my opinion, of these are the best years of your life. When you look back, you'll think your teenage years are the best years of your life. Which, like, let me know in chat. Is anyone really peaked in the best years of their life were as a teenager? Because they were the most confusing, scary, anxiety-inducing, difficult times, really. Yeah, not personally. I don't know a single person who really feels like their teenage years were the best times of their life. Yeah, so glad it's over with. Absolutely, indeed. Like, I liked seeing my friends all the time, but, being a teenager, yours were during COVID, lol, oh goodness. But yeah, being a teenager, it's not the best years of your life. Being 17, 18, 16, not the best years of your life. That's absolute bullshit. That's... If it is for some people, well done, I guess. But I feel like you're still too much trying to find yourself at that point to really know who you are, and most people pander to what, is cool, or what, your friends are into, or you're trying to figure out who you are. I don't think you can really have the best years of your life while you're unsure of who you are and what the world around you is. You think the best years of your years are nebulous? Yeah. I don't think anyone will have a best year of your life. Every day is different, and every year that I know has had some great parts and some shitty parts. I think that's just a silly little term. But anyway, this story, The Best Years of Your Life, it had anger, it had angst, it had an emotional whirlwind of a piece. It was also a story about physical transformation, more body horror in, I guess. You only know when you're at the end. Yeah, that makes sense. You don't know what tomorrow's got to hold. You don't know what the next year's got to hold. I think it's quite sad when people say that teenage years are the best years of your life. But yeah, this main character turns into a bird in the end. Spoiler alert. She turns into this oddly beautiful bird through rage and anger, weirdly. Yep, very, very odd. It was definitely an interesting one. I will read the, I'll read you the inspiration behind this piece. We have, by Felix Wilkins. Whoever's first used the phrase, the best years of your life, in reference to adolescence is an unrelenting sadist, and possibly more qualified to be a horror writer than I or anyone else published in this anthology. The constant state of hormone-fueled physical and mental dysphoria, the feelings that seem to hit either in complete extremes or not at all, having to maintain relationships with family and friends in the midst of all of this, and feeling absolutely powerless to change any of it. This is a time of transformation, a slow, lingering, painful transformation that is made a million times worse by the looming presence of the future constantly hanging above us, obscuring the better version of yourself that you aspire to be and replacing it with temperamental, depressive, unstable monster that you can barely recognize. So if it's true... if this time is genuinely the best years of your life, then don't tell Tori, the main character, unless you want to ruffle a few feathers. Which is a lovely little nod to the fact that, main character turns into a bird. Which, I really liked Felix's writing, but the entire time there was no dialogue. Ha ha, feathers, yep, indeed. There was no dialogue. You just got to hear Tori's impressions of the dialogue. So you understood that she was talking to people and people were talking to her, but you never actually got to hear what they said. It was very much reading her internal monologue and reading how she felt about everything without knowing what the actual truth, getting there was nothing objective about it. Everything was purely subjective, which was really interesting, especially because the main character is angry the entire time and is in a rage-fueled state that you've got no idea what's going on outside of her state. You were purely insular inside of Tori, which is really interesting. It was hard to read because, it was so angry, but it was great. It really reminded me a lot of being a teenager, being an adolescent, going through puberty, that entire absolute emotional, angsty whirlwind. It was very cool. And then lastly, we have Holden Shepard's a very, very gay story, Rappaccini's Son. Are people who peaked in high school seen as kind of sad? Like those guys who can't tell their get let go of their high school football? Absolutely. I think a great version of a great exploration of peaking in high school is the play Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, by why can't I remember his name? Damn. But it's absolutely, the main character is this closeted gay guy in America who It feels like everyone sees that he should be having this perfect life at this point, but he can't let go of his past. He can't let go of what his father saw in him when he had been the leader, best football player. There's all of that father's expectations, and I feel like that's also in this last one. Someone mentioned the gays. Hello, Axel. Welcome to my speculative fiction book club, where we're discussing Hometown Haunts. You made it just for the last description of the last book. Especially because it means your life is never getting any better, even though you're less than a quarter of a way through it. Yeah, really quite sad. But yes, Holden Shepherd's story is about... how do I describe it? It's about two rival florists, both Italian, in somewhere, I'm assuming, Western Australia. And one of the florists dies, and there's a lot of hate and a lot of anger, and one of the other florist, the one the main character works for, is so over the moon that he sends the grieving family flowers. However, the grieving family isn't as grieving as you would think it would be. And the main character, Giovanni, meets this boy named Sonny, who is Rappaccini's son, named the name of the book, the short story. He meets him, and he is this weird man, weird child who is focused on the darkness and was really brought into this world to be dark and to harbor hatred and revenge. And it manifests. The garden around him grows whenever is in the presence of this darkness, as the characters describe. And Giovanni learns to accept this level of darkness within themselves, even though it's the worst thing in the world. He doesn't want to be dark. He does not want to have feelings of revenge and anger, but doesn't realize that everyone has been walking all over him his entire life. His job, his boss calls him nicknames. They call him Shrek because he is slow and ugly like an ogre, apparently. And he flips. He learns about the darkness, and he tries to teach Sonny, the other boy, who they both kind of fall in love, and he tries to teach Sonny about mercy, and sadly, he's too far gone, and it's really quite sad in the end. Oh my god, rival florist sounds amazing. Yeah, it kind of is. Though you will say there are a lot of lessons you learned through high school, and you're not talking about academics. Absolutely. What I love about YA is it's exploring a time where everything is constantly changing, and learning to adapt and learning about the real world is something you kind of have to do on a daily basis. Weird man focused on the darkness. Is this my autobiography? Maybe, Axel, except I don't know. Do you have the abilities to make plants grow around you? Man falls in love with a boy or... No, so they're both boys. Sorry, it's YA. So all of the characters are usually between the age of 16 and about 20. So no, it is not... There's no creepiness to it. It is all of the characters are young. And in this one, I don't know when they are exactly, but I know that the main character is a high school dropout. So they would be in high school at the time. Bunny, no! But yeah, I will read Holden Shepherd's Inspiration after I have a small drink, because the Giovanni vampires are not a good representation of Italians, let alone Italian Australians. Yes, you have the ability to hire a gardener to grow plants for me. Incredible. Okay. When I started brainstorming this story, I knew I wanted to tap into my own fears. What's most horrified me growing up was the prospect of doing the wrong thing. Despite trying to be a good Catholic boy, my biggest fear as a teenager was that at my core was rotten. That I was a bad boy. Deviant, rude, weird, unlikable, and not good enough. During the brainstorming in late 2020, I was working out at the gym, earphones in, and I stumbled across a Fleetwood Mac song called Running Through the Garden. I was captivated. The lyrics suggested a much bigger story. I listened to it on repeat, and when I got home, I discovered that Stevie Nicks apparently wrote it after being inspired by American novelist Nathaniel Hawthorne's 1844 short story, Rappaccini's Daughter. After I read Rappaccini's Daughter, I was inspired too. I wanted to tell a warped love story between two young men adapting the poison garden of Hawthorne's tale and Nicks's lyrics into a metaphor for my own fears, the tug of war between flowery virtue and the angry weed-like desire to behave badly. And so Rappaccini's son was born, a way to make Giovanni face his demons around self-actualism. You do love garden stuff. Yeah, garden imagery is some of the best imagery. Rival Florist sounds like a potential forbidden lesbian romance novel. In this story, it is a gay men romance story, but also definitely could have been a lesbian romance story. Very much Rival Florists, garden imagery, all beautiful and incredibly horrific. Good elements for horror. Or a great D&D idea. You play a barbarian florist whose arch enemy is another barbarian florist. Incredible. How many lesbianisms in this book? It is unclear. It is seen more of all of the ones that I can remember. There's one person that I forgot I left out because I never actually finished reading the story because it was so beautifully written. It was about the slaughter of a cow. It's called Slaughterhouse Boys. It is by... Let me get it open. Because I can't believe I forgot her. It was an incredible story, but it was too good that I felt physically sick reading it. Because it is about the slaughter of a cow and the eating of the cow's body. And it was so vivid in detail that I was really nauseous while reading it. But that's a lot of them were gay men. There is one that Alison Evans story where the genders are all ambiguous, but it is definitely queer in some way or form. But I don't think there was any lesbianism that I can think of off the top of my head now that I think of it. I think it was mostly gay men, which I will try and find a more lesbian, sapphic focused story for another time. But yeah, no, this Slaughterhouse Boys, I'll give you the inspiration of it, but and I'll give you my notes on it, because I did write some notes, but most of my notes were absolutely gorgeous, couldn't read it, made me want to puke. Yeah, made me nauseous. I had to stop reading it because I could feel the blood leaving my body. I felt not like I was going to puke, I felt like I was going to faint, actually. Which is incredible because it's a written down story that I'm reading like this. But it was really vivid and I could see the scenes absolutely perfectly. Wish I could have stomached finished just reading it. Also very gay, loved it. Hello Aaron, welcome! Welcome to my hopefully monthly speculative fiction book club. I will just read Emma Osborne's notes on this piece. Slaughterhouse Boys deeply represents the Australian country where I grew up. The party, with all the drunkenness and the chaos and the horror, is something I attended on scores of occasions as a young kid. I wanted to explore the feeling of not belonging that I felt as a queer kid, the feeling of wanting to be somewhere I could be myself, and the fear that being myself would bring rejection. Slaughterhouse Boys also grapples with my discomfort of being an omnivore, who nevertheless is deeply disturbed by factory farming and animal abuse. Meat and blood and toxic masculinity and queerness and acceptance all fold neatly into this story as I was writing it. In the story, meat is precious rarity, and I wanted to look at the repercussions of that in terms of family, of permitted violence, and the weight of expectation. I also really wanted to explore the choice of my character Tom to seek the approval of his blood family rather than removing himself from his life as he knows it, from what is uncomfortable but relative safety, at least for now. I'd like to think he makes it out eventually. Okay, me catch up. I have a book suggestion for you that I can tell you later. Okay, awesome. Let me know, please. Lord, Lady, Count, Baron, Your Highness Phoebe. Thank you very much, Aaron. Yes, all of the titles. I believe her truest title is Sir Lord Baron von Phoebe. Incredible. The most important title is Canon Rosa. Yes! Yay! I love playing Rosa so much. This particular story sounds really up your alley. Yes, it does, Bunny. I recommend this book. It wasn't extremely expensive. You can probably find an ebook version of it out there. I recommend all of the stories in here, but I'll get to my top, my top 3. I believe my top 3, as I've kind of like pointed, was the traditional horror, Sarah Epstein's Stop, Revive, Survive, and the significance of the sign that everyone in Australia who's gone on a road trip has seen while driving on the road, and how that became the structure of the story, which is incredible. I also loved the creepiness and second-guessing I had with Euro Hayline by Margaret McGovern, and I really, really liked Seek and Destroy. Oh, Tom, thank you so much for the subscription. I don't think I've got my subscription notifications up, sadly. I've completely forgot, but Much Book, thank you very much. I appreciate it immensely. Even if there isn't the fanfare, I do appreciate it. Let me catch up. You can't relate to queer problems even though you're queer? You're a bad kid? Oh no. Bye, Panic! Yay! You're reading Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. Fun book if you love Star Wars. Oh! Aaron! Thank you so much for gifting Kiwi a subscription. I appreciate it immensely. Thank you so much. Kiwi, enjoy the use of the Bye Panic emote. I think that's my only good emote, but thank you very much. And thank you so much, Aaron. That is so sweet. I'm so glad you're enjoying your Star Wars Thrawn trilogy. But I am glad no one asked, but I'm still glad that you told us. You'll say it now, Beautiful Malice is so Australian. Absolutely. Absolutely. You've never had a difficult phase being accepted. I guess, you just had other issues to focus on when you came out. It was just a thing. Oh, well, that's good that you never had issues coming out. I'm glad you didn't. Panic, yes, Panic. Wait, I'll put out some Bye Panic. 1 second. Oh, no, I won't. That's really screwed up my interface for a second. But anyway, yes, appreciate it immensely. Thank you. So yeah, I've described every book in this incredible anthology. I enjoyed all of them. I am so loved by people. Yeah, absolutely. As a bi person myself, I give all of the bi people and all of the people in the LGBTQIA+ spectrum a big thumbs up. You're always welcome here, and I am very glad that we exist. And there is some queer stories in here, as well as some neurodivergent stories, some multicultural stories. This book is really as inclusive as I love. Aw, thank you so much, Aaron! That's so sweet! You're my favourite queer Irish person. It truly has it all. I've got to say, again, shout out to Don't Look for having a book that was completely point of view under the covers, reminding me of being scared of the dark as a child while exploring grief in a very poignant way. And also, I would like to shout out both of the graphic novels included in this anthology, celebrating the legitimacy in storytelling using art as well as words. Especially loved It's Quiet Now by Emma Preston, as it really brought this new vivid aspect to lockdown and put it in a different way that I hadn't thought of. And trust me, I've thought of many different ways of lockdown because I have been there constantly. All for good reasons. Really need to read that book now? Yes! If you have not, please do. I also, in one of my tweets, linked the screenwriter in this, Felix Wilkins, made a cute little snippet video that gives like more teasers and more quotes from the anthology, and it's really good. I've linked it in my Twitter post for today. Yay! Cute. Oh, you're also lovely. But anyway, has anyone read it? You don't have to. It's definitely not a pre-requirement for this stream. But if there's anyone who has read the story, do you have the anthology? Is there a top 3 that you have? If not, that is completely fine. You have not? I totally recommend it if you have not. Okay, I will go through my cocktail that I've nearly finished. This is a vodka soda with a shot of Portello cordial made by Bilson's Brewery, which is a brewery and cordial maker in Beechworth, regional Victoria. A local legend that I've been to their brewery and the distillery before. Incredible. Portello is like a great Australian flavour, which is part of the reason I've added it to this cocktail, because the cocktail is themed after the novel. It has got some dark elements to it. The colour, it's truly Australian. The vodka, I bought the cheapest vodka I could because vodka is the main teenage drink. Like, you get cheap vodka, you pour it, you mix it with whatever you can, and you get absolutely hammered. It's most people's go-to. It is apparently in Australia. Teenagers, I think 48% of teenagers' drinks are vodka mixes, which is incredible. Oh, I have missed out on some talks. Let me catch up. You have it at home, totally forgot to read it, lol. All good, now you have an excuse to read it. I've talked it up quite a lot, which I wasn't expecting to do, but then I read it and I was like, damn, this is really, really good. Not every piece is my favourite, but all of them have great elements to them. Love a good vodka. Vodka's great. Vodka is fabulous. You will say that Beautiful Malice was an Australian book you literally did not stop reading until you finished it, and you actually cried. Okay, let me write that one down. Shit, I don't have a pen with me. You'd think I'd have a pen with me. I will keep a note of it on my phone. Let me do that there. What a great name, Beautiful Malice. Australian stories. Something very interesting, and why I've created this book club specifically to highlight Australian novels and Australian artists, especially within the speculative fiction side of things, because in Melbourne specifically, we do not celebrate our speculative fiction as much as we do our literary fiction, and I think that's quite sad. Oh, also I put blueberries in here. Sorry, I completely forgot. I put a dash of lime juice for a little bit of balancing with the soda as well. The little acidity and the surprise, the little kick to it, I felt really encompassed part of the story. Also balancing the different elements of horror, which with the soda making it not a strong drink, as also teenagers don't drink strong drinks. And I put blueberries in it because blueberries symbolize youthfulness and naivety, and I feel like a lot of these horror stories are brought from a place where you don't know what's happening, and it's a YA anthology, a young adult anthology, where teenagers are at the prime age of not knowing what's going on and still trying to survive nonetheless. Let me catch up. Ireland, it's cider. America, it's beer. From experience speaking to people. That makes sense. That does make sense. Usually beer is seen as a big thing here. But I think I don't know. You'd assume it would be a big thing here, but I think most people start off with something easier to get into it. We've also got a great wine culture here. But no, people start off with the easiest to guzzle down drinks. It's true and depressing. What is speculative fiction specifically? So, speculative fiction. Sherb is best animal in Animal Crossing. Is there an animal in Animal Crossing called Sherb? I'm sometimes called Sherb. I'm called Phoebe. You can call me any of those kind of things. Sherb from the Sherbrooke Waters aspect of things. You can call me Phoebe Brooks. You can call me PK Brooks. Whatever you wish. But if Sherb's the best animal in Animal Crossing, then I am the best Animal Crossing villager. I'll happily take that. So speculative fiction is stories that basically take on the what if. So fantasy belongs in that category. Sci-fi belongs in that category. Horror definitely belongs in that category. It is the things that look at the real world, but add some element of what if, of something abstract and out there. So in sci-fi, it could be what if robots had feelings, because at the moment they don't. So that would be the what if. You're a vodka, rum, and cider man yourself? Cider tastes the best. Yep, cider's good. I've been to a lot of pubs recently where I've ordered cider. Rum doesn't affect you, and vodka is fun. Nice. Phoebeth. You can call me Phoebeth. You can call me Phoebeth Rosencannon Brookwaters, definitely. You like a vodka whiskey, Axel, and gin. Those are your main 3 drinks. Ah, Sherb is new to the Switch one. Okay, cool. I did not know that. Was the horror movie Upgrade an Australian project? I don't know. I'm not actually aware of a lot of Australian horror, which is why I really dug my teeth in specifically to this one. Also, there was a couple of authors that I wanted to read their work, and that was a major part of choosing this book to be the first one. Also, easy reading. I thought it was a good array of things. A light blue goat! Male, technically. Oh, cool! Cute! That shit terrified you. I think it might have been directed by an Australian buck, but I might be wrong. Have you seen... I have not seen Upgraded, but I'll add it to my list. Upgraded. That's what it's called, or Upgrade? Maybe it's called Upgrade. Lay Wannell. Ah, I don't know it. It's on Stan, so it's probably Australian. Stan, the streaming service in Australia. I don't know if anyone else has that one. I'm not sure. Fan of bugs and snacks. Well, I'm a fan of snacks. I'm not a fan of eating bugs, but I am a fan of looking at bugs. So maybe I am the Sherb from Animal Crossers. Upgrade. It's a future stuff. But yeah, it's a dope movie. Nice. Okay, I'll add it to my list of things to look at. Very cool. But yeah, I think Australia is an incredible location for horror specifically. The landscape really adapts itself to it. I think so. Does anyone else have any favorite Australian horror or any aspect that you think of the Australian outback or landscape, even the rainforests and because we contain all of the biomes. How do you think it relates to horror? Would you like to read the beautiful Malice blurb? Maybe in a moment I will. Most of our animals write themselves. Yeah. True. Animals. I completely forgot about our animals. We are absolutely completely full of animals that can kill you. I mean, Wolf's Creek, absolutely. That is a horror movie series, I believe, that definitely has the outback as a character in itself. That one town that lives underground because it's too hot. Kuthapedia, I believe? I think it's one of the mining towns. Yeah. Absolutely horrific. Worth it for you want to develop technophobia. Agree. Lee Wannell is most famous for Saw. Oh no. So yeah, you guys invented a lot of new horror genres. Oh no. Not Saw. Oh goodness. That is absolutely Saw is not my cup of tea, but I'll definitely check out Upgraded. Stuck in the middle of the outback, much fear, indeed. Think so. You'd simply dissolve if you were stuck in the middle of the outback, yeah. Tom, I know you're a fan of Saw. I fully understand that you're a fan of Saw. I'm not good with body horror, to be honest, and needles and medical stuff. So elements of Saw has really, turned me off. The first one was great. Okay, cool. Let's write a sci-fi Aussie horror together where it turns out cassowaries are aliens come to destroy us. If you look at my Instagram story, I don't know if it's still up, but I actually got to feed a cassowary recently. I've met a few cassowaries recently because I went on a little trip to far north Queensland. And oh my god, what incredible, adorable dinosaurs. And they're a matriarchy as well. The males are the ones who look after the young, and the women are the ones that go out hunting. Really, really cool. Let me catch up. Aren't they already? Yeah, they are the horror monsters, cassowaries. They're gorgeous, but they are terrifying. They are dinosaurs. They are just after the Jurassic period, but they look like dinosaurs. Their feet are literal dinosaurs. Those birds are terrifying. They're beautiful, but damn. Sounds too much like Scientology. Oh no. You might run a VTM chronicle set during the times of the Troubles. Decided on that today. Irrelevant but exciting. That's very exciting. That'd be a very interesting time period to look at through a VTM lens. I am very eager to see that, Aaron. If you stream that, of course. If you do not stream that, that's okay. But I'd like to hear all about it then. Yeah. Let me go over. How does everyone feel about reading horror? Because usually I can read horror better than I can watch it, but I have started watching horror movies recently, and starting off with the classics is really good. A really good way of like leaning into it, because like you start watching stuff from the 80s and things aren't that horrifying when there's no CGI and there's interesting effects. You're totally better at reading it, yeah, absolutely. But then there's scenes like Slaughterhouse Boys, and there's 4 pages in the book Dracula that are all about blood transfusions, and I could not read them. I could absolutely not read them. Horror fuck. Aaron, what are you saying? Let me get to it. You don't think reading horror affects you unless it's graphic novel comic book horror. Okay, cool. You struggle to play it. Though, let me go. Reading horror, watching horror, listening to horror, you love horror, but you struggle to play it. Okay, cool. That's interesting. Because I guess you're more interactive in it. You were part of it. Because, yeah, I'm not great at playing horror video games. I'll have to admit. I would much rather watch Ethan play horror video games. Or watch someone else play horror video games than me doing it. The ones that I've played the most are the Dark Pictures anthologies, and they're quick time events, and that's great, but also like absolutely terrifying, because like all of the decisions are left up to a tiny little button press and whether you press it on time. But like actually having to control someone running, like I go into full running mode myself. After the cassowary talk, you read the ooh as emu. Oh, that's very funny, lol. So easy to fall into a mine shaft if you stray from the paths. Yeah. Yeah. Visuals are so much worth, yeah, definitely. Originally wanted to explore horror setting based in Cooperpedias, nice. But yes, very much easy to fall into shafts. That is the right way to read ooh as emu, indeed. What do you think of the Dark Pictures games after you finish them? That's the worst part for me, when everything is explained. Yeah, I guess so. I liked the first one. I never actually played the first one. I watched someone else on stream play it. I think it was Eurogamer or someone that I watched play the Man of Medan. And it was a lot better during, I think, as well, but I didn't mind the ending of that one. The one I've played was Little Hope. And I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but the ending that I got, because of the way I was absolutely shit at everything, I found was a lot more interesting than when I watched Ethan play it, and his ending was kind of more or less the same, despite the fact he got to save a whole bunch of people. I would have liked more ending for that one, but I really liked how it worked when I only saved the person that technically can't be dead, and that was upsetting because I didn't know that they technically couldn't be dead. But I have bought the Devil in Me, and I have not played it, so no spoilers please, but I am very excited to see how that one goes, because that one's got more of an interactive element to it. The claustrophobia, the paranoia, the things beyond the walls, creepy crawlies coming inside, a fire or accident forcing you out of your safety hole, and suddenly that claustrophobia transforms into the horror of open spaces. Yeah, that is why Cthulhu would be very interesting. When are you going to write a novel? Exactly. Bunny, when are you writing this novel or this TTRPG? Need to know now. Can't write for shit, your spelling and grammar. Writing isn't about spelling and grammar. Like, yes, you need to get good at that stuff, but only after, like, the 5th draft. Your first 5 drafts can be absolutely dog shit when it comes to spelling and grammar. That is what you have beta readers for. That's what you have Grammarly for. That's what you have editors for. That will all be fixed in post. The real story is the way you use words and how you allude to things. And Bunny, you are incredibly good at using words. Narrating horror, that's different, yeah. You're very good at narrating horror. Axel, your friends, and you were playing a Changeling Lost set all over the world. In one of our games, The Dusking Court was set in Adelaide. Our GM set it in a derelict building on a random street, and if you go inside, it becomes a deep forest just down the main hallway, leading to the main dusky territory in that hedge. That's very interesting. Your favourite was Little Hope. It had so much passion in it for you. It was the most clever written. I think so. I really liked Little Hope. Also, I really, really enjoy Will Poulter as an actor, so that was the main reason for me buying in it. Guess what? The devil is in you. Is that a spoiler? I don't know. I've not played it, so I don't know. But I guess it's in the title, so it's to be suspected? Ooh. Changeling is so fucking cool, so sad though. Yeah, I can imagine. Changeling definitely has horror elements to the storytelling. You could write a novel and make it an audiobook, Bunny. No excuses, yeah. Bunny, no excuses. Oh, goodness. Doggos. You love using language to make people feel things, and that's what horror is all about. It's the werewolf. Dog. Yep. Definitely. Oh, it's spiking my mic. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this anthology. I can recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. It's brilliant, and I am ready to finally put it down after finish reading it, but some of these stories were really brilliant, and most of them had great elements to them. Wait until they make Dark Pictures Anthology, horrible murders done everywhere in the setting, every scene with lots of interaction and horror. Yay. Incredible. Phoebus, did you hide Rosa in the other room in her dog form? Shh. No, it's just her hounds. You know how she has hounds all around the town? That's just in the other room. Because I am the in-canon Rosa, thank you very much. It's too hot? Is it too hot over your side of the world? Side of Australia, Bunny? Because at the moment it's like 20-something degrees in Melbourne, Victoria. And it is not that hot at all. We do not have the oppressive heat that is absolutely horrifying. Which makes Australia an incredible place for horror, in my opinion. But anyway, thank you all for joining me. I think this has been really fun. I can't wait to do it next month. I will announce that next month I will be reading, and if you would like to, you can also read with me Catching Talakrow, another Australian YA novel. This one is also a ghost story. And also a tale about grieving, so very much follows along the lines of this book. I will get into fantasy and sci-fi later, but an Australian outback murder mystery that is quite dark, but it is also a ghost story because the main character, spoiler alert, is a ghost, and she is helping her father, who is a police officer, solve murders while she is a ghost and haunting him because he can't let go of her presence. It's very sad. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster. I already know that I'm going to cry while reading it, so we've got that to look forward to. And wonder what the next cocktail will be about. I already have ideas. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all again next time. And, you know, whether you want to read the book or not, I will explain it as much as I can in the best possible way I can. The Icy Deadith people, yes, that is what this next book will be all about. Looking forward to it. But yes, I'll see you all next time, where we can discuss more Australian ghost stories. On the 27th of February. But between then, I should hopefully be doing some more Murder Mystery Mondays and some other streaming during the time. I'm still working on my new schedule, because you know, life do be doing those things. But I'd love to see more of you soon, and thank you so much for everyone who has come. And I am so happy to talk to you some more, get to know what you're reading, get to know what you're playing, and just hang out in a very casual, nonchalant way. So yeah, have a great rest of your month. I will see you next month. Thank you so much. See ya.